Hey everyone, we're back to film our own little take on the last meeting, and the fact that we're getting it done before the next meeting happens should be good enough for you guys.
Good enough for me. Good enough for you?
Good enough for me.
Cool.
Three basic things that I really want to try and hammer out tonight is so we can try and figure out the rest of the decision phase so we can actually start moving into, the making phase, is I want to try and figure out what kind of story we want to do, what exactly we're doing, what kind of adventures we're going on. I also want to figure out what our character is, who he is, who she is, what it is, kind of something like that. And then besides that, some ideas on some potential levels or anything like that we had. Yeah. But essentially what the idea was, you are a man who's working at a store, and I named the store Cost Bros just because I thought it was funny. You get to go on break one day, and you're going on break. And your boss comes up to you and is like, hey, we need you back on in 15 minutes. And you're like, no, I think I want to go and build a time machine. And you work at Cost Bros, which sells everything. So you decide that you're going to build a time machine out of whatever you have in store. So you basically build a time machine, but
clips and pencils.
Your boss forbids you from building a time machine because it's going to take up too much time and you're not going to be back on time for your shift. So you decide you're going to leave work. You then proceed through levels, gathering all the materials you need in order to build a time machine. The first boss battle in the game is you have to beat your boss. You have to defeat your boss in combat to do the American dream and do whatever you want. After you defeat your boss in combat, then you get to move into the time machine where you basically get to move around different time areas. The first one being, the normal world. The second world being, how you have Mario, you have different worlds, different levels, that kind of idea.
Yeah.
The second one being medieval, the third one being the past, and the final one, the fourth world, being the future. While you're there, the entire future is just kind of like not at all what you expected, and because you're from the past, the future knows about time travel. So they're like, we need to capture you because you're going to screw up things. And you're like, I'm not going to do that, but you don't know it, but you are. So the fifth world essentially is back in the normal world. Your first world that you were in. You showed up an hour or so after you would have done anything, and you start walking outside, and suddenly out of nowhere you see a velociraptor take down a child, and you're like, oh god, what have I done? You walk forward, and there's just like some dude in armor just like fighting with a car. Like he's just stabbing the hood of a car or something, and you're like, oh my god. And basically all of the time areas that you've been to have been able to basically follow you through the time rifts that you've made. And then because of that, all of the time errors are happening at one time. And so because you basically, but in the fourth world, you end up finding out that you showing up at that point in time accidentally triggers Armageddon. And then after you run away for a bit, you're like, wait, I should help people. And you end up going through until ultimately the end of existence as itself shows up. You saved all of time! Here's a reward! And they give you basically a lever that you put in your time machine that lets you choose where you actually go. So you decide you're going to go back, to not be late for work, basically. You show up all the nonsense is going on. When you realize all the nonsense is going on, you're like, oh wait, I need to go and stop myself from ever having done this. Otherwise I'll screw up all the time. So you go to meet yourself, before you would have created all of time, but you show up, like a little early. So you have to make it somewhere, you have to plan how to stop yourself. And right before you plan to stop yourself, future you, you that knows everything shows up and goes, no, this has to happen the way it happens. And you're like, no, I need to stop it. And it basically, the evil version of you and the good version of you are standing at a crossroads that decides what is or isn't going to happen to the person that is about to start all of time.
So we'd like to start by talking about the plot that was discussed. I think there were some better plot ideas that had gotten thrown around, not necessarily for the overarching plot, but certainly for some of the detail work.
I'll be curious to see what comes Thursday as far as script and if anyone else has any more ideas, because we know Evan's plan from back in the day that he brought, but I don't think we know a lot of the detail yet.
I'm concerned that the script that comes back to us this upcoming Thursday won't be anything that...
Do you have the same concern as I do that it won't exist?
Yes.
Cool. So we'll let you know eventually. Anyway, so what do we like?
I think it was actually a neat idea to go with a female character. I feel like that'll not to say there's any problem with male characters, but statistically speaking, there are less female characters in games, and honestly, this game, I think it will suit female character could be very well suited.
Mm-hmm.
Tori was drawing some little sample doodles on the board of what she could look like, and I honestly liked her doodles.
Yeah.
I honestly, if that doodle could be our final character model, I wouldn't be pissed.
I think that'll probably be what's going to happen, because, I know I was going to work on the art, but what she does is just out of the water. And this could be wrong. My hypothesis of what's going to happen, though, is we're doing this like hybrid top-down / side-scroller. So either way, the sprites for the characters can't be super detailed. So I'm thinking that if we're going to have little in-between cutscenes, even if they're not animated, if she draws that in a lot of detail, that can be like what she had up on the screen on Thursday, and then I can just try, or whoever else on our team can just try to make some sprites that kind of match art for that. I think that would be a nice medium point.
Absolutely, fair enough. One thing I would like to bring up is that the name was voted upon, and I feel like this should not have been left. The name should not have been left to a vote. Aeon Fugi.
I've never. I won't say that name doesn't exist, but it does not scream out, "Hey, I am a common individual, and therefore I have something in common with you."
Even with the most obscure characters, you want something to be relatable about them, and the name is usually a good starting point, because unless you're setting it in a different time or a different universe, like if you're setting a game in like medieval fantasy times, then sure, the name can be something that you wouldn't really hear normally,
right.
Like Rogarth. That's not a name you're going to hear normally, but it sounds medievally. But a name like Aeon doesn't work for a girl in modern America.
Right.
I initially had some concerns. People were bringing up the idea that her personality should be like completely boring, like she's so very normal that nothing about her stands out, and that to try to make her more relatable, I guess. But my concern was, if she's someone who's going to build a time machine, she's got to be at least a bit eccentric. Anyways, but aside from issues with the character's name, the fact that there are some things in the plot that I feel I'm a little bit concerned about, especially with script writing, I am excited about a lot of facets of the game. Specifically, I'm super excited about the fact that I get to work with Michael on the sound crew. I feel like...
Although now that he's buying GTA 5 in like 9 minutes ago,
yeah,
he's going to be a little unavailable.
That's fair, but I accommodated for that, and I feel like it doesn't change the fact that I can at least start working on some template pieces.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited about working on some period-specific music. I am excited about using full voice, as long as we can get good voice actors and actresses for it. I feel like if it goes well, then great, and if it doesn't go well, then we're just going to bite us in the ass that we tried to start with it.
Yeah, but it's one of those, if we plan for it and it doesn't work, we can also always do like text box dialogue pop up at the bottom and just have music running throughout, and if we have a silent protagonist, so be it.
I guess my expectations for this game it's going to be a very long road, but I think that if the people who actually give a shit come together, then we can still produce a pretty good looking product by the time we're